My name is Clara, I'm 32 years old, and up until about a year ago, I was what you might call the family doormat, the eternal scapegoat, the one everyone conveniently forgot unless they needed something. My own sister, Lisa, the darling golden child, once laughed in my face, a cruel, mocking sound that still echoes in my ears when I desperately, humiliatingly, asked if I could borrow $99. $99. She called me a pathetic failure, her eyes glittering with a kind of triumphant disdain that had been her signature look towards me for as long I could remember. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I was on my way to the bank, not to scrape together pennies, but to access a trust fund my grandmother had left solely for me. A trust fund containing $2.8 million. The sheer, delicious irony of it still makes me want to laugh, or cry, or maybe both. And the look on Lisa's face when the bank manager, in his calm, professional voice, confirmed the amount and my sole access to it. It was more than priceless. It was a reckoning. Have you ever been pushed so far, treated with such casual cruelty by the very people who are supposed to love you, that a moment of absolute, world-tilting vindication feels like the only air you can finally breathe? That was my moment. The moment the gilded cage they kept me in, and the one they'd built for themselves, shattered into a million pieces. Hey, everyone, it's Clara. Thank you for clicking on this video. Before I dive into the whole messy, unbelievable story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop a comment below and say hi. And if you're new to my channel, please consider hitting that like button if this story starts to resonate with you, and definitely subscribe, because you are not going to want to miss a single detail of how this all played out. Trust me, it's a journey, and one I think many of you might find, if not familiar, then at least empowering in its own way. My journey from being their forgotten trash to, well, someone they suddenly couldn't forget, no matter how hard they tried. The memory of Lisa's sneer, the casual flick of her wrist as she dismissed my plea for that $99. It was for an emergency prescription copay, by the way, something I genuinely needed after an unexpected illness had wiped out my meager savings. That memory became the fuel. She'd been lounging on my parents' expensive sofa, idly scrolling through her phone, probably looking at designer bags she expected them to buy for her. $99, Clara? Really? She drawled, not even looking up. Are things that bad? Maybe you should try budgeting. Or, get a better job. Some of us actually make an effort. The words were designed to sting, and they did, but they also ignited something within me, a cold fury I hadn't realized I was capable of. Little did she know, the effort I was about to make would change everything, not just for me, but for all of them. The universe has a funny way of balancing the scales, doesn't it? And sometimes, it uses the most unexpected means to do so. In my case, it used the profound love and foresight of a grandmother who saw me, truly saw me, when no one else did. Now, to really understand the satisfaction of that moment in the bank, the sheer, unadulterated vindication that washed over me as Lisa's jaw practically hit the polished marble floor, I need to take you back. Way back to how this whole twisted family dynamic began, because the roots of their cruelty and my quiet suffering run deep. It wasn't one single event, but a lifetime of 1,000 tiny cuts, a consistent, soul-eroding pattern of favoritism and neglect that defined my existence within that family. I was the elder child, by 3 years. You'd think that might afford me some status, some responsibility, but in my family, it just meant I was the built-in, unpaid dog's body and emotional punching bag. Lisa was, from the moment she was born, the princess. She was blonde, blue-eyed, and had a cherubic smile that could, apparently, melt glaciers and absolve any sin. I was just Clara, quieter, more observant, with plain brown hair and a tendency to prefer books over demanding attention. My parents, particularly my mother, doted on Lisa. Every gurgle was a sign of genius, every tantrum a display of strong will. If Lisa scraped her knee, it was a major medical emergency. If I broke my arm falling out of a tree I'd climbed to retrieve Lisa's kite. Mind you, I was told to stop making such a fuss and be more careful. The disparity was blatant. almost comical if it hadn't been so painful. Lisa would receive lavish birthday parties, mountains of presents, the latest toys, the trendiest clothes. My birthdays were often an afterthought, a small cake, a practical gift if I was lucky. More often than not, it was, "Oh, Clara understands. She's the mature one mature." That was their code word for neglectable. I learned early on that my achievements meant very little. I was a straight-A student. Lisa struggled to pass. My report cards were met with a cursory nod. "That's nice, dear." Before the conversation inevitably shifted to how they could help Lisa improve her grades, or how stressed she was. I won a citywide spelling bee in 5th grade. My prize was a small trophy and a gift certificate to a bookstore. When I brought it home, beaming, my mother's first words were, "Oh, that's lovely. Lisa, did you remember to practice your piano? Your recital is next week, and we want it to be perfect." Lisa, who bashed at the piano with tuneless abandon but was always praised for her artistic spirit. That night, I remember taking my little trophy to my room and just staring at it, the plastic gleam feeling cold and hollow. It was the first time I consciously recognized the pattern, the deep, unyielding unfairness of it all. My grandmother, my dad's mom, was the only one who seemed to notice. She'd visit occasionally, and her sharp eyes missed nothing. She'd find me reading in a corner and sit with me, asking about my books, my thoughts. She once saw me trying to fix my own bicycle chain while my dad was lavishing attention on polishing Lisa's brand new one. Grandma quietly came over, helped me with the greasy chain, and then looked at my father with a gaze so pointed it could have cut glass. He just mumbled something about Lisa needing her bike for a playdate. Grandma winked at me. "Don't you worry, Clarabelle," she'd whisper, her voice papery but firm. "Some flowers bloom a little later, but they're often the most beautiful." I clung to those words, those small moments of validation, like a lifeline. They were the first seeds of hope that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't entirely invisible. The pattern of favoritism, so starkly established in our childhood, only intensified as Lisa and I grew older. High school was a masterclass in watching my efforts be minimized while Lisa's every whim was indulged. I threw myself into academics, joined the debate club, wrote for the school paper, activities that required little funding but a lot of dedication. Each success, a debate won, an article published, was met with the same lukewarm reception at home. "That's good, Clara. Just make sure you're not too busy to help Lisa with her history homework. She's finding it ever so difficult." Lisa, meanwhile, discovered boys, parties, and the art of manipulating our parents into funding her increasingly expensive social life. A new dress for every dance, money for concert tickets, eventually a car, a cute little convertible, while I was still taking the bus or bumming rides. When I finally saved up enough from my part-time job at the library to buy a clunky, 10-year-old sedan, my father's only comment was, "Well, at least you'll be able to drive Lisa around when her car is in the shop." The assumption was always that my resources, my time, my energy, were at the family's disposal, primarily for Lisa's benefit. College applications rolled around. I earned scholarships to a decent state university, diligently filling out financial aid forms myself because my parents claimed they were too complicated, and besides, they needed to save for Lisa's dream school, a private liberal arts college with an exorbitant price tag. "Lisa is more sensitive, Clara," my mother would explain, as if that justified everything. "She needs a nurturing environment. You're strong. You'll thrive anywhere strong." There was that word again. Their excuse for offloading responsibility, for expecting me to absorb every disappointment without complaint. And for a long time I did. I worked multiple jobs through college, tutoring, waitressing, library assistant again, just to cover my living expenses and textbooks, because the scholarships covered tuition but not much else. I'd call home, sometimes feeling overwhelmed and lonely, hoping for a sympathetic ear, but the conversation would inevitably swerve back to Lisa, Lisa's new friends, Lisa's exciting campus life, which seemed to involve more parties than study, Lisa's need for an extra allowance because things are just so expensive there. My grandmother, bless her soul, was my quiet confidant during those years. Her health was beginning to fail, making her visits less frequent, but her letters and phone calls were a balm. She never directly criticized my parents in front of me, but she had a way of asking questions that made me feel heard. "And how are your studies, Clarabelle? What fascinating things are you learning?" She'd send me small checks tucked inside cards, always with a note. "A little something for my hard-working granddaughter. Spend it on yourself." It was never much, $20 or $50, but it felt like a fortune because it was given with pure, unconditional love and recognition. It was during one of those calls, when I was particularly down about having to miss a friend's birthday celebration because I couldn't afford even a small gift or the gas to get there, that Grandma said something I'd ponder for years. "Don't you ever let them grind you down, child. Your worth isn't tied to their approval. I've made some arrangements to ensure you'll always have a little bit of sunshine, a way to stand on your own 2 feet. When the time is right." I'd thanked her, assuming she meant she was putting aside a small inheritance for me, perhaps a few $1,000s from her modest savings. The idea of millions, of the kind of independence she was truly planning, never even crossed my naive mind. After college, armed with my degree and a weary sense of self-reliance, I found a decent job in accounting. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, and for the first time, I had a steady income that was entirely my own. Or so I thought. It didn't take long for the family to recalibrate their expectations. Now that I was Clara with the good job, the subtle and not-so-subtle financial requests began. It started small. "Clara, dear, could you pick up the groceries this week? We're a bit short," or "Lisa's phone bill is overdue, and you know how she needs her phone for, well, for everything. Could you just cover it this once?" This once became a recurring theme. Lisa, true to form, had flitted from one passion to another after somehow graduating college, aspiring photographer, then jewelry designer, then lifestyle blogger, none of which generated any actual income, but all of which required significant investment, usually from our parents and increasingly with nudges towards me. "Clara, Lisa has this amazing opportunity for a pop-up shop, but she just needs a little seed money for inventory," my mother would plead. "You're so good with money. Surely you could help your sister out?" The pressure was immense. If I hesitated, I was selfish, unsupportive, not a team player. My father would chime in with his usual, "We're family, Clara. Family helps each other. And Lisa has so much potential. She just needs a break." It was always about Lisa's potential, never about my actual, hard-earned achievements or my own financial needs and dreams. I wanted to save for a down payment on a small condo, to travel a little, to perhaps go back to school for an MBA. But those dreams seemed to shrink with every demand. Lisa, meanwhile, treated my contributions not as help, but as her due. She'd accept the money with a dismissive wave, a casual "thanks, see," as if I were her personal ATM. There was never any genuine gratitude, never an offer to repay, never an acknowledgement of the sacrifices I was making. She'd then flaunt her new purchases or experiences, often funded by me, on social media, making sure to tag everyone except me. It was a special kind FU, veiled in digital nonchalance. During this period, Grandma's health took a more serious downturn. I visited her as often as I could in the nursing home, holding her frail hand, listening to her stories, cherishing every moment. Her mind was still sharp, her wit intact, even as her body weakened. In one of our last lucid conversations, she gripped my hand with surprising strength. Her eyes, though clouded with age, held that familiar, fierce love. "Clarabelle," she rasped, her voice thin. "Remember what I told you. Your sunshine. Don't let them overshadow it. I've made sure you'll be all right. My lawyer, Mr. Henderson, he knows. He'll reach out. Promise me you'll live your life, for yourself." I promised, tears streaming down my face, still not grasping the full magnitude of her words, thinking only of the impending loss of the one person who had consistently been my champion. The guilt was a heavy cloak. I'd give every penny I had, or ever would have, just to have her well again, to hear her call me Clarabelle one more time. But I also felt a flicker of resolve. Her words weren't just about money. They were about a legacy of strength. Grandma passed away peacefully a few weeks later. The grief was a profound ache, a hollow space in my world that I knew would never quite be filled. The funeral was a somber affair, though I couldn't help but notice my parents and Lisa seemed more preoccupied with the practicalities and, I suspected, the reading of the will. They assumed, I think, that Grandma's small house and savings would be divided, probably with the bulk going to my father, her only child. I didn't care about that. I just missed her. Mr. Henderson, Grandma's lawyer, a kind, elderly gentleman who had known her for decades, approached me after the service. He expressed his condolences and then said, "Your grandmother left very specific instructions, Clara. There are some matters pertaining to her estate that concern you directly. I'll be in touch in due course." After a specified waiting period, she stipulated. I nodded, too numb to inquire further, assuming it was about a small keepsake or a sentimental item. Life settled into a new, sadder rhythm. The family's financial demands didn't lessen. If anything, they subtly increased, perhaps sensing that one less critical eye was on their machinations. About 6 months after Grandma's passing, I hit a rough patch. The company I worked for underwent restructuring, and my department was downsized. I received a small severance package, but finding a new job in my specialized field was proving harder than I anticipated. I was burning through my savings at an alarming rate, trying to keep up with my rent and bills while diligently job searching. Then, I got hit with an unexpected infection, a nasty flu that turned into bronchitis, requiring doctor's visits and medication. My emergency fund was non-existent, thanks to years of bailing out Lisa and my parents. The copay for a crucial antibiotic was $99. $99 that I simply did not have. Swallowing my pride, a bitter, familiar taste, I first called my parents. My mother listened impatiently, then sighed. "Oh, Clara, always something. We're a bit tight ourselves right now, with Lisa needing support for her new online boutique. Why don't you ask Lisa? I'm sure she could spare a little something. She seems to be doing so well. I knew Lisa's online boutique was another money pit funded by them, but I was desperate. I called Lisa. She answered with an annoyed, "What?" I explained my situation, my voice small, hating every word. "I just need $99 for a prescription lease. I'll pay you back as soon as I get my unemployment check or a new job." There was a pause, then that laugh. That cold, dismissive, utterly contemptuous laugh. $99? Seriously, Clara? Her voice dripped with scorn. Are you still that much of a mess? God, some people just never get their lives together. Why don't you try, actually working for a change instead of expecting handouts?
I'm Buse.
Figure it out yourself, and she hung up. I just stood there, phone in my hand, the dial tone buzzing in my ear like a cruel taunt. That was it. The final, microscopic piece of hope, of obligation, of any lingering familial feeling I might have harbored, just shattered. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was the casual cruelty, the utter lack of empathy for my own sister, for a sum so trivial to her, yet so critical to me at that moment. A cold, clear rage, unlike anything I'd ever felt, settled in my chest. It wasn't hot and explosive, it was icy, precise. And in that moment, I remembered Mr. Henderson. Grandma's words. He'll reach out. He hadn't yet, but Grandma had said he would contact me. Maybe it was time I took the initiative. The specified waiting period must surely be over. The morning after Lisa's brutal dismissal, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. The hurt was still there, a dull ache beneath the surface, but it was overshadowed by a new, steely resolve. I found Mr. Henderson's card, tucked away in a memory box with a few of Grandma's letters. His office was in an older, distinguished-looking building downtown. I called and made an appointment, my voice surprisingly steady. When I arrived a few days later, Mr. Henderson greeted me with a warm, almost paternal smile. "Clara, good to see you. I was indeed planning to call you next week. Your grandmother was very specific about the timing." He led me into a comfortable, book-lined office. We spoke for a few minutes about Grandma, sharing fond memories. Then, he leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. "Clara," he began, "your grandmother, Eleanor, was a remarkable woman. astute, kind, and fiercely protective of those she loved. She saw a great deal, perhaps more than your family realized. He paused, then continued. She established a significant trust fund many years ago, with very clear instructions. You, Clara, are the sole beneficiary. I blinked. A trust fund? I thought maybe she'd left me a small sum, a few thousand perhaps. Mr. Henderson smiled gently. Eleanor was a very successful investor in her younger years, a fact she kept rather quiet. The trust, my dear, is currently valued at approximately $2.8 million. The air left my lungs. $2.8 million. I think I actually swayed. My mind reeled. Images flashed. Lisa's sneer, my mother's dismissive sighs, my father's lectures on family obligation, every lonely birthday, every ignored achievement, every time I'd handed over my hard-earned money. And Grandma, my quiet, loving grandma, had been orchestrating this silent rebellion, this ultimate act of love and empowerment, all along. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the concerned face of Mr. Henderson. They were tears of shock, of grief for Grandma's profound understanding, tears of an almost unbearable relief, and yes, tears of a rising, righteous anger. She stipulated, Mr. Henderson continued softly, that the funds become fully accessible to you either upon your 30th birthday or 6 months after her passing, whichever came later. You turned 31 last month, and it has been over 6 months. The funds are yours, Clara, to do with as you wish. Her greatest hope was that it would give you freedom, security, and the ability to live life on your own terms, without encumbrances. A polite word for my family. He then explained the mechanics of accessing the trust, the accounts, the paperwork. I listened in a daze, my head spinning. As I left his office an hour later, clutching a portfolio of documents that felt like they weighed a ton, the world outside seemed brighter, sharper. The $99 I'd so desperately needed suddenly seemed laughably insignificant, a symbol of a past life. A plan began to form in my mind, not a malicious plan, not exactly, but a plan for a demonstration. A quiet, undeniable statement. I spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotion and activity. I consulted with a financial advisor Mr. Henderson recommended, opened new accounts, and began to understand the sheer scope of what Grandma had given me. It wasn't just money. It was a future. It was power. The power to say no. The power to walk away. The power to choose. Meanwhile, as if on cue, the family drama escalated. My father called, his voice tight with anxiety. Clara, we really need to talk. Things are difficult. Lisa's online boutique, well, it needs another injection of capital. And the roof is leaking. We were hoping you could see your way to helping us out, maybe a loan from your severance pay? I listened, a strange detachment settling over me. I'm still looking for work, Dad, I said, my voice neutral. My severance won't stretch that far. His sigh was heavy with disappointment and implied accusation. Even Lisa texted, a rare occurrence. Mom says you might have some cash. I need $500 for a new influencer collab. Vital for the brand. LMK, not even a please. The sheer, unadulterated entitlement was breathtaking. I didn't reply. My plan was taking shape, and it required a certain stage, certain actors. The next step was to arrange the grand finale at the bank where the main trust account was held. I called and made an appointment with the bank manager, explaining I needed to discuss the transfer of a substantial trust fund. They were, understandably, very accommodating. The final piece of the puzzle was Lisa. I needed her there. Not my parents, just Lisa. Her mockery had been a catalyst. Her face was the one I wanted to see when the truth came crashing down. I waited a couple of days, letting the silence from my end build their frustration. Then I called Lisa. Hey, I said, injecting a note of hesitant hope into my voice. So, I spoke to Mr. Henderson, Grandma's lawyer. He mentioned there might be some final distributions from her estate. He said it might be worth your while to come to the bank with me on Thursday. He wasn't specific, but he implied there could be something for family. I dangled the bait, counting on her greed and her ingrained belief that anything good from Grandma would naturally flow to her or the family unit she controlled. Lisa's tone shifted instantly from bored indifference to keen interest. Really? Grandma's money? What did he say? How much? He was vague, Lise, I replied, keeping my voice carefully neutral. Just that it's an appointment with the bank manager about her accounts. He suggested you might want to be present. It's Thursday at 2 p.m., First National downtown. Okay, fine, I'll be there, she said, a new, almost proprietary note in her voice. Don't be late, Clara. Hopefully, it's enough to sort out my current cash flow issues. This influencer thing is make or break. I hung up, a small, cold smile playing on my lips. She had no idea. The journey to the bank on Thursday was an exercise in supreme self-control. Lisa, true to form, was late meeting me, then spent the entire Uber ride complaining about her suppliers, her useless parents for not giving her more money, and how inconvenient this bank errand was, though she clearly expected a payout. I hope this isn't just for some sentimental trinket Grandma left you, Clara, she sniffed, applying lipstick in the car's vanity mirror. Because I actually have important things to do. This better be substantial. We'll see, I said mildly, looking out the window, my heart beating a steady, determined rhythm. When we arrived at the impressive, old stone facade of First National Bank, Lisa practically bounded out of the car, a predatory gleam in her eyes. She clearly envisioned herself walking out with a hefty check. I, on the other hand, felt a strange sense of calm descend. This wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about truth. It was about severing a cord that should have been cut years ago. It was about honoring Grandma's final, extraordinary gift in the most impactful way I could imagine. As we walked into the cool, marble-floored lobby, I saw the sign for private banking and headed towards it. Lisa, for a moment, looked surprised I was heading to such an exclusive section, but quickly recovered, likely assuming it was all part of the process for whatever family money she was about to receive. The stage was set. The main actor was in place. And I, the long-ignored supporting character, was about to deliver the performance of a lifetime. We were ushered into a plush, quiet office. Mr. Davies, the bank manager, a distinguished man in his 50s with a reassuringly calm demeanor, stood to greet us. He shook my hand warmly. Ms. Ainsworth, welcome. We have all the preliminary paperwork ready for you, he nodded politely at Lisa. And you must be Lisa Ainsworth. Her sister, Lisa announced, a proprietary air about her, as if her presence was crucial to the proceedings. She sat down in one of the leather chairs without being invited, already looking impatient. Mr. Davies raised a subtle eyebrow, but proceeded smoothly.
Right.
Well, Ms. Clara Ainsworth, as per your instructions and the terms of the Eleanor Ainsworth Trust, we are prepared to facilitate the transfer of the full balance into your newly established personal accounts. He consulted a file on his desk. The total amount for transfer, after all administrative considerations, is $2,812,453.22. He said it so matter-of-factly, like he was reading out a grocery list. For a second, there was dead silence. I kept my expression carefully neutral, my gaze fixed on Mr. Davies. Lisa, however, froze mid-reach for her phone. Her perfectly made-up face went slack, her eyes wide with disbelief. She slowly turned her head, first to Mr. Davies, then to me. Wait, what? She stammered, her voice a hoarse whisper. What did you say? 2.8 million. Mr. Davies, ever the professional, looked at her. That is correct. Ms. Clara Ainsworth is the sole beneficiary of the trust. Lisa's jaw literally dropped. Color drained from her face, then rushed back in a furious, mottled flush.
No.
No, that can't be right, she exclaimed, her voice rising, cracking. That money, it's Grandma's money. It's for the family. Mom and Dad said. Mr. Henderson said, you said, Clara. You said it was for us. She was on her feet now, gesticulating wildly, her carefully constructed composure shattering like cheap glass. I finally turned to look at her, my expression calm, almost serene. No, Lisa, I said, my voice quiet but carrying clearly in the suddenly tense room. You assumed. You heard what you wanted to hear. Grandma left this money to me. Solely to me. But why? She wailed, her eyes darting between me and the bewildered bank manager. Why would she give it all to you? You were just Clara? The words hung in the air, a perfect encapsulation of their lifelong dismissal of me. Just Clara. Perhaps, I said, feeling a surge of strength I didn't know I possessed. Grandma saw things you all refused to see. Perhaps she knew who truly valued her and who would respect her wishes. Mr. Davies cleared his throat. Ms. Clara Ainsworth, given the substantial nature of this transaction, there are a few additional security protocols and verification steps we need to complete. It's standard procedure. This may place a temporary hold or freeze on the immediate withdrawal of the full lump sum for a short period, while everything is finalized, but the funds are unequivocally yours and being transferred into your designated accounts as we speak. The bank froze moment, exactly as I'd anticipated. Though it was merely procedural, it added to the drama. Lisa seized on the word freeze. See. There's a problem. It's frozen. It's not real, she cried, almost triumphantly, clinging to any shred of hope that this nightmare wasn't true. Mr. Davies looked at her with a hint of pity. Not at all, madam. It's simply a large sum transfer protocol. A matter of hours, or a day at most. The funds are secure and assigned to Ms. Clara Ainsworth. He turned back to me, offering a reassuring smile. We can arrange an initial, smaller withdrawal for you today if you require immediate funds, say, anything up to $50,000. That was when the full weight of it seemed to hit Lisa. The sheer, incomprehensible scale of it. The casual mention of $50,000 as pocket money. Her face crumpled. Her eyes, moments before blazing with outrage, now swam with a desperate, dawning terror. Clara, she whispered, her voice trembling. Clara, please, we're sisters. You wouldn't. This changes everything. We can share it, right? Mom and Dad, they'll be devastated. We need that money. I need that money. And then, in a moment that will be forever seared into my memory, Lisa, my proud, disdainful, golden child sister, actually sank to her knees on the plush carpet of the bank manager's office. Her hands were clasped together as if in prayer, her mascara starting to run as tears streamed down her face. Please, Clara. I'm begging you. I didn't mean what I said about the $99. I was stressed. Please, you have to help us. We're family. It was the ultimate, pathetic capitulation. The universe hadn't just balanced the scales, it had tipped them over with a resounding crash. I looked down at Lisa, kneeling on the expensive bank carpet, her face a mask of desperation and belated, self-serving remorse. The sight didn't fill me with triumph, not exactly. It was more a profound sense of finality. The end of an era of being their emotional and financial punching bag. Funny, Lisa, I said, my voice devoid of the tremor she probably expected. It was cold, clear, and steady. Just a few days ago, $99 was too much for you to even consider helping me with. You called me pathetic. A mess. You told me to get a life and hung up on me when I was sick and genuinely needed help. Now, with millions on the table, suddenly we're sisters? Suddenly, I'm not so pathetic? She flinched as if I'd slapped her. I didn't mean it, Clara. I was having a bad day. You've been having a bad day towards me for 30 years, Lisa. I replied, the words sharp as icicles. Every single day you, Mom, and Dad made choices. Choices to belittle me, to ignore me, to exploit me, to favor you. Grandma saw it all. I gestured around the opulent office. This isn't just money. This is Grandma's way of giving me what you never did. A chance. A chance at a life free from your collective toxicity. I looked at Mr. Davies, who was observing this family implosion with admirable professional discretion. I think, Mr. Davies, I won't require an immediate withdrawal today. Knowing the transfer is in process is quite sufficient. Thank you for your assistance. I stood up, smoothing down my jacket. Lisa remained on the floor, sobbing. Clara, no. Don't do this. Think of Mom and Dad. This will destroy them. You can't just take it all. Can't I? I paused at the door, looking back at her one last time. You all seem to think I could take endless amounts of disrespect and neglect. This is my choice now, Lisa. Just like all those years of how you treated me were your choices. Goodbye, and I walked out. I walked out of that bank, into the bright afternoon sun, feeling lighter than I had in my entire life. The air tasted sweet. The sounds of the city seemed vibrant, alive. It was as if a heavy, invisible cloak I'd been forced to wear since childhood had finally, blessedly, been lifted. My phone started ringing almost immediately. First Lisa, her calls desperate, hysterical. I let them go to voicemail. Then my mother, her tone a mixture of disbelief and fury. Clara Elizabeth Ainsworth. What is this I hear from Lisa? $2.8 million? And you're keeping it all? How could you be so selfish, so ungrateful after everything we've done for you? Everything they'd done to me, she meant. I listened for a moment, then calmly said, Mom, Grandma left her money to me. It's my decision what I do with it. And I've decided to finally live my own life. I suggest you and Dad and Lisa figure out how to live yours, without me as your fallback. I then blocked her number and my father's and Lisa's again. It was brutal, yes, but it was necessary. The days that followed were a blur of setting up my new life. I found a financial advisor, a good one, who helped me make sensible, long-term plans for the money. I found a small, beautiful apartment in a quiet part of the city, far from my family's orbit. I started therapy to unpack decades of emotional baggage. The relief was immense, but it was also exhausting. I grieved for the family I wished I'd had, even as I celebrated my escape from the one I did. The first taste of true freedom, of making decisions based solely on my own wants and needs, without considering their reactions or demands, was intoxicating. It was like learning to breathe again after being underwater for far too long. It's been a little over a year now since that day at the bank, the day my life irrevocably split into a before and an after. The transformation has been profound, not just externally, but deep within me. With the security Grandma's gift provided, I finally had the space to heal and to grow. I didn't go on a wild spending spree. That was never the point. The money was a tool, a means to an end, and that end was peace, independence, and the chance to build a life on my own terms. I did, however, invest in myself. I took courses in things I'd always been passionate about but never had the time or resources to pursue: pottery, creative writing. I started volunteering at an animal shelter, finding immense joy in caring for creatures who gave unconditional love, something I'd rarely experienced from my own blood. I even started a small online bookkeeping business, helping other small creative entrepreneurs manage their finances, and it's actually thriving. It turns out, being sensible Clara had its advantages when applied to my own endeavors. The biggest change, though, has been internal. The constant anxiety that used to be my shadow has receded. The gnawing feeling of inadequacy, drilled into me since childhood, is slowly being replaced by a quiet confidence. I've learned that my worth isn't dictated by how others treat me, especially not by those who never valued me in the first place. I learned the profound importance of boundaries, not as walls to keep others out, but as fences to protect my own peace and well-being. Saying no is no longer a source of guilt, but an act of self-preservation. As for Lisa and my parents, from what I've heard through the grapevine, a distant cousin who still talks to me occasionally, things haven't been easy for them. Without me as their financial safety net and emotional scapegoat, they've had to face the consequences of their own choices. Lisa's online boutique, predictably, failed. She apparently had to get a real job, something in retail, and is reportedly miserable. My parents had to sell their oversized house, the one they could barely afford even with my sporadic contributions, and downsize significantly. They apparently complain endlessly about how ungrateful and cold-hearted I am. There's a part of me that feels a twinge of something, not pity, exactly, but a sad acknowledgement of their self-inflicted misery. But it's a distant twinge. They built their lives on a foundation of entitlement and exploitation, and when that foundation crumbled, they had nowhere to turn but on each other. I haven't seen or spoken to them directly since that day. Sometimes I wonder if I should, if there's any path to forgiveness. But forgiveness is a complex thing. I've forgiven myself for taking so long to stand up, for absorbing their toxicity for years. As for them, perhaps one day. But for now, my peace is too precious, too hard-won, to risk. The most important lesson I've learned is this: it is never too late to reclaim your life, to choose yourself, to walk away from situations and people who diminish you. True family, true love, doesn't demand your subservience, it celebrates your strength. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to break free, even if it means breaking ties that were supposed to be unbreakable. My grandmother knew that. Her gift wasn't just the money, it was the permission to finally be me. So, that's my story. The tale of how a $99 mockery led to a $2.8 million revelation and, ultimately, to a freedom I never thought possible. It's been a wild ride, and sharing it with you all feels like another step in owning my narrative, in turning pain into purpose. I'm genuinely curious. Has anyone else out there been through something similar with family dynamics, favoritism, or feeling like the scapegoat? How did you navigate it, or how are you dealing with it now? Please share your experiences and your wisdom in the comments below. I promise I read every single one, and I find so much strength and connection in knowing we're not alone in these struggles. Your stories matter. If this video resonated with you, if you found any part of my journey relatable or even a little bit inspiring, I'd be so grateful if you'd give it a thumbs up. It really helps more people find these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I plan on sharing more about building a life after toxicity, finding self-worth, and perhaps even some of the practical steps I took to get where I am today. And hey, if you know someone who might be struggling in a similar situation, someone who needs to hear that they have a right to choose themselves and their own happiness, please consider sharing this video with them. You never know who you might empower with a story of resilience. Sometimes, just knowing that someone else has walked a difficult path and come out stronger on the other side can be the spark of hope that person needs. Thank you all so much for listening, for being a part of this community. It means more to me than words can say. Remember, your worth is inherent. Don't let anyone, no matter who they are, convince you otherwise. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.